How do I find a new job? How can I make a career change? And the biggest question of all, can I really find a career that I love? Hey, my name is Jen Smith, and I believe career success doesn't have to be at the expense of living a radiantly happy and healthy lifestyle. As a former HR leader and recruiter turned career coach, I get what companies are looking for when hiring top talent. What that means for you is an unmatched combination of insider knowledge and the best kept secrets about making heart-based career changes and navigating the ups and downs of job searching in today's world of work. Whether you're a recent graduate navigating the job market for the first time or a seasoned professional ready for a career change, this show is for you. So grab your coffee or your kombucha, pull up a seat, and get ready to be challenged and inspired to move beyond your self-doubt and take the right next steps towards landing a career you love. Because you deserve a long, radiantly happy and healthy career. This is the Flourish Careers Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Flourish Careers Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Smith, and today we are talking about heart-based leadership. I have had too many conversations lately with beloved heart-based professionals about bad bosses. And trust me, I've been there. So today's intention is to share a little more about heart-based leadership in the hopes of spreading the word. This will also be helpful if you're a first-time people manager, or if you're indirectly leading others, or even if you're just brushing up on your leadership skills. And frankly, I believe leadership comes in many forms, not just directly managing a team at work. So you could be an individual contributor and lead large projects, which means that you're influencing without direct authority, and that is very challenging. You might be a community leader and working to make progress on improving your neighborhoods. Parenting is a form of leadership. Coaching, teaching are all forms of leadership. So it comes in many different shapes and sizes, but regardless, heart-based leadership can be applied across the board. So today we're going to start with background on my heart-based leadership philosophy. I'll share some examples of bad managers to show you that you're not alone if you're experiencing this, whether it's the micromanager who stifles creativity, that absentee manager who is never there when you need guidance, or the dictator who rules with fear over respect. And by recognizing these traits, we can better navigate and cope with all the challenges that they present, and ultimately strive to cultivate positive leadership qualities and environments for ourselves and our teams. From there, I want to share 3 foundational elements of heart-based leadership and how you can implement these in your work. So let's get to it. What if the secret to effective leadership wasn't your skill set or achievements, but how you make others feel? Think about a fantastic leader in your world. So this could be a coach or a mentor or a boss, or maybe even a thought leader in your industry that you admire. So once you have someone in mind, how do they make you feel? When I think about this, words like inspired, motivated, creative, fearless, these are all things that come to mind, and these are all elements of how a heart-based leader might make you feel. Before I left corporate, I participated in a leadership conference, and I was really intrigued by this compelling concept of establishing a leader brand. This idea challenges you to merge your leadership qualities with your professional brand. And it isn't about just how you want to be seen as a leader. It's also about how people perceive you and how you make others feel. After substantial self-reflection and multiple iterations, I realized that my leadership identity is deeply anchored in the principles of servant leadership. I've been privileged to collaborate with some outstanding leaders who who demonstrated servant leadership throughout my professional life. And that revelation was so pivotal that its principles have really guided me throughout my career. Now, some of you might be familiar with the term servant leader, and its interpretation can vary. So for me, the cornerstone of this approach is pretty simple, but I also think it's pretty transformative. And the idea is to lead with your heart. Leading from the heart involves genuine commitment to the well-being of others, both in professional and personal interactions, and it can manifest in a lot of different ways. So maybe, for example, you recognize the exhaustion in a colleague's voice, and then you work with them to carve out time so they can recharge. It might be sending a quick message to wish a teammate good luck before an important event, or even just checking in when someone isn't feeling well. Heart-based leadership also emphasizes that fostering growth and creating opportunities for others is an opportunity for them to advance and flourish. It's about recognizing where each individual is in their professional path and tailoring opportunities for their specific development areas. And it might even involve allocating time to coach someone after a significant presentation or recommending a leadership book for someone aspiring to be a people manager. All of these are pillars of heart-based leadership. Another pillar of heart-based leadership is maintaining a receptive and adaptable mindset. With our ever-changing world of work on a global scale, the notion of lifelong learning is more relevant than ever. So knowing that you don't have all the answers allows you to consider your team's input, which really drives motivation. Being open to new perspectives and remaining teachable enables an environment where others can freely contribute and really help move the business forward. And lastly, heart-based leadership is about empowering others. You're stepping aside, removing obstacles, and trusting that they will excel in their jobs. So to sum it up, my leader brand is rooted in the philosophy of heart-based leadership, which is characterized by genuinely caring for others, cultivating professional growth, remaining open and teachable, removing obstacles, and getting out of their way. Let your team do what they do best. I have a quote here from an anonymous author that really sums this all up. It says, "A person's most valuable asset isn't a mind filled with knowledge, but rather a heart filled with love, an ear ready to listen, and a hand willing to assist." That's what I stand for. So, what do you stand for? This is a big question and something to explore if you're working on your leadership skills. Now, I know our professional world, unfortunately, is not jam-packed with conscious heart-based leaders. Sometimes, more often than not, we encounter leaders who don't exemplify heart-based leadership. And recently, I've had so many conversations about this. So let's talk about the opposite side of the spectrum. So what some of these quote-unquote bad bosses might feel like and look like. First example I have here on my outline is a micromanager. So imagine you're working on a project and your manager constantly hovers over your shoulder, questioning every decision you're making and insisting on approving everything, even the tiniest details. They're probably setting up regular meetings for updates on your progress, not out of genuine interest, but really more about maintaining control. Micromanagers also might assign tasks with overly detailed instructions, and it really just doesn't leave any room for initiative or creativity. And as a result of this, you might feel suffocated or demotivated. You might even start to doubt your abilities despite being completely capable of completing your tasks. So this type of manager often struggles to delegate effectively, and it really causes frustration and hinders creativity, innovation, and productivity. So have you ever dealt with somebody like that? My guess is that you might have. Another is fear-based leadership. So here I think of almost like Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada. I worked for a manager who led by fear, and I can tell you that there was a time where the security guards would literally call our office when she came through the gate and let us know that she was on her way in the building, and we would scatter because she was so intimidating. So this type of leader really does not inspire. They command, they control everything. They're very demanding and very intimidating. Another example of a bad boss is a manager who's completely hands-off and never involves the team. So picture a team where the manager is never heard from. They might pop in occasionally for brief meetings or updates, but beyond that, they remain distant and uninvolved. This manager rarely seeks input from team members or provides any type of guidance. As a result, team members may feel directionless, disconnected, unsupported. They might struggle to understand priorities, which can lead to all kinds of confusion and inefficiencies. Another type of bad boss might be someone that leads by command and control, similar to the intimidation or the fear-based manager. This can look like my way or the highway. I'll share a quick example here. I'll never forget when I was part of an HR team at a growing company. We had a leader, let's just call him Marcus. Marcus was very likable, but lacked some leadership skills. He never got the team's input, made decisions in a box, dismissed our concerns, wanted to control everything, never made a mistake, pointed out everything that everyone else did wrong, and really ended up leaving chaos in his wake without even realizing it. I literally think about a tornado and how it just kind of plows through and leaving a disaster behind it, not even knowing it. And one situation that stands out is when Marcus decided to implement a new performance evaluation system without fully understanding any of the intricacies or consulting the team. So he made these grand promises about how the system's going to revolutionize our performance management process and boost employee engagement. However, when it came time to roll it out, things unraveled. The system was overly complex. It lacked any kind of clear guidelines, caused a ton of frustration among leaders and employees. Performance reviews ended up becoming a source of even more anxiety rather than any type of mechanism for constructive feedback. Despite all of these issues, Marcus was completely oblivious to anything that he caused. He continued to defend the new system, dismissing any concerns raised by the team. And it wasn't until we received numerous complaints from leaders and employees that Marcus finally realized the havoc that he brought on. And by then, unfortunately, the damage was done. It took significant effort to revise the system, rebuild the system, and rebuild trust with everybody that was using the system. So this experience highlighted that leaders like Marcus create chaos if they fail to recognize any of their own blind spots and involve the team in the decision-making process. So this is just one tiny example. The stories I hear about bad bosses from all of my heart-based, beloved community members go on and on. And let's face it, bad bosses affect our sleep. They can cause anxiety and really hurt our confidence. And as heart-based achievers who are deeply invested in our work and our well-being, often find ourselves really affected by poor leadership. So recognizing and addressing these challenges is crucial to foster healthy work environments where individuals can contribute their best. So let's break down some of the foundations of heart-based leadership. First and foremost is goal setting. So collaborating to define team goals. And I always say, let's add a little heart to our SMART goals. And you can do this in a couple different ways. First, I just want to say around goal setting, this is the team's roadmap. If you don't have goals and you're not working towards a common objective, what are you doing? So we need to have the roadmap, and that's why goal setting is so important. The first step here is to engage teams and mean it. So this is not a check the box exercise. We want to leverage the diverse perspectives and expertise from everyone on the team in order to define team goals. This collaborative approach allows the team to be bought in, and that ownership goes a long way. So begin by sharing organizational goals. Heart-based leaders will provide the context by sharing broader organizational objectives and how the team's goals contribute to achieving them. This helps team members understand the significance of their work, even in the most mundane tasks, and how that applies to the larger context of the organization's mission. From there, explain the why. Heart-based leaders are really good at articulating the rationale behind different objectives, which helps team members feel that sense of purpose behind everything they do and ultimately helps bring that fulfillment into their work. So once you've reviewed the larger company objectives and the why behind it, discuss team goals together. So what do you want to achieve as a team? And then from there, I recommend breaking it down into tiny actions. So co-create actions with the team that are realistic and achievable. Gaining ownership. So heart-based leaders will involve the team in assigning ownership in specific tasks or milestones to each of these goals, which allows team members to contribute to the overall success of the project or the initiative. And it also helps everyone feel accountable to the team's objectives. And when you do this, I recommend playing to individual strengths. A lot of times in the corporate world, I hear that we have to close development opportunities and work on making your weaknesses into strengths or whatever. And I just don't think that that's the right way to go. So that can lead to a mindset where people feel pressured to excel in areas where they just don't naturally thrive. So instead, a more effective approach could be to really capitalize on strengths where you're leveraging things that individuals are good at and find ways to maximize those strengths. So heart-based leaders can identify opportunities for team members to even develop new skills and in those strengths even more through expanding their knowledge or taking on new responsibilities that are in alignment with their career aspirations. So the bottom line here is that collaborating with the team to define objectives, break down goals together, align with individual strengths and aspirations, and providing the context and rationale will foster a culture where team members feel collaborative, engaged, and sharing in the ownership. And it's going to make work much more fun. Another foundation of heart-based leadership is compassionate communication. So the idea here is to foster open dialogue, encourage open communication. Heart-based leaders can create an environment where team members feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and concerns and ideas openly. This is going to help team members feel trust and transparency. I will tell you that working in HR for so many years, 9 times out of 10, when there's an issue on the team, it's because of a breakdown in communication. So as a heart-based leader, you want to establish regular communication channels and stick to them. So if you're going to set up regular one-on-one meetings with your team members, I think that's a fabulous idea, but don't cancel them. I remember this happened a lot in the corporate world, and it always made me feel like I was the least important person, and it's super frustrating. You can consider a variety of communication channels such as email, phone calls, text, video conferences, in-person meetings, newsletters, asynchronous voice messages. There's so many different ways to communicate that based on the nature of the message and your team members' preferences. Active listening is a huge piece of communication. So pay attention to verbal and nonverbal cues from folks. This is going to demonstrate empathy and respect for all perspectives. And as a leader, you might have to tailor your communication styles. Some people prefer direct communication. Others just need a little bit of context and not so much detail. So know what your team members need and adjust accordingly. Lastly, solicit feedback. Periodically ask the team about their communication style and preferences, and then make adjustments to ensure you are effectively communicating as a leader. So now we've talked about heart-based goal setting, compassionate communication. The third element of heart-based leadership I want to touch on is making feedback part of your culture. There is a phrase that comes to mind, and it's, you can't expect what you don't inspect. So you must know what your team is doing and share positive reinforcement and constructive feedback. Heart-based leaders are going to encourage continuous learning, experimentation, and improvement through feedback. This is fostering that growth mindset, and you want to make sure that it's framed as an opportunity for growth and development versus criticism or punishment. Heart-based leaders will balance both the recognition of achievements to motivate team members, and they'll also provide constructive feedback to help identify areas for growth and development. You can make this part of your regular communication mechanisms. So now that we've talked about the three aspects of heart-based leadership, I want to pull it all together and share a story around a common challenge that a lot of leaders face, which is handling difficult conversations. So when I was working in operations, I faced a challenge of reducing expenses. My manager instructed me to cut down on indirect labor, which is roles that are not directly involved in production or shipping. So these are administrative roles, HR, quality control, any kind of support teams. In this case, it was a team of 3 who worked behind the scenes to get orders into the system, and they worked with the sales team to forecast orders. My manager was completely hands-off and just threw this at me and told me I was going to have to lay them off. So rather than solely focusing on numbers and working behind the scenes, I approached the team with transparency and compassion. So I directly communicated the issue to this team, explained why we had to come up with a solution, acknowledged the difficulty of the decision, and emphasized the necessity of meeting our goals. Despite the initial resistance, I encouraged the team to brainstorm solutions collaboratively, and together we came up with a plan to reallocate some of their weekly hours to a direct labor account. This effectively addressed our labor gap while retaining all of their positions. Once we implemented it, we checked in each week and conducted a start, stop, continue exercise to ensure we were on track and going as expected. So this approach resulted in a much more creative and sustainable solution where the team felt engaged and really grateful for the opportunity to contribute. And by involving the team and communicating openly, prioritizing empathy, we developed a successful outcome that was rooted in heart-based leadership principles. So I hope this example shows you how to involve your team, communicate compassionately, and ultimately develop creative and innovative solutions, even when faced with a challenging situation. So as we wrap up, I want to say that heart-based leadership is not easy. It's natural to feel overwhelmed by the responsibilities of this type of role. But here's the thing, you don't have to do it alone. Seek support, seek guidance from mentors or colleagues, and that can be incredibly valuable. So as we come to a close, I hope this episode offers some practical strategies and examples to illustrate how heart-based leadership can address a lot of common challenges and lead to positive outcomes. And here I'll leave you with the words of Maya Angelou, American poet and civil rights activist, and one of the best examples of heart-based leadership. She says, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And that, my friends, is heart-based leadership. That's a wrap for this week. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please consider recommending it to a friend. As always, the notes from today's show are found on the blog at flourish.careers/blog. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you next time.